Arkansas, for Arkansas. This is Inside Arkansas Live.
And welcome into Inside Arkansas Live here on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. I'm your host, John Neighbors, alongside Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis. I appreciate each and every one of you for making us a part of your afternoon this afternoon. A lot of stuff to talk about here on Remember Wednesday, presented by Fayetteville Fly Co. We'll get to a lot of topics. Got Razorback basketball tonight. Going to get, of course, Remember Wednesday and talk about some of those things and maybe get into some things that piss us off. But, guys, I hurt my knee so bad right now, and it is pulsating. I had to run as soon as the intro started to go get something, and I ran straight into the table with my knee, and it is throbbing. So I'm just going to power through, though. I'm not making excuses.
Rub some dirt in it, John. You're going to be okay, man. We need toughness out of everybody associated with Arkansas tonight. All right, so let's get the Peter Griffin stuff out of the way, and then you're going to be just fine. I'm fired up, man. No offense, I love you guys. I love doing the show with you. I'm just trying to kill time right now. I got to get over to Bud Walton Arena, dude. I'm really looking forward to this game. Need it. Need a good atmosphere. Need to get this sour taste out of the mouth from Saturday. I'm over that Tennessee game, man. Ready to see the Razorbacks get rocking tonight. It should be a fun one.
Curtis has flushed Tennessee, and he's on to Ole Miss. And I've actually been sensing this building in Curtis, this excitement. I can tell it was bubbling yesterday. He was antsy. He was ready to get back to Bud Walton. He was ready to get that taste of that blowout loss out of his mouth. And John, I was noticing something happen. I wasn't really paying attention because the intro's playing. I can kind of see you guys at the bottom here, but it's not that big of a screen. But I could see you like laughing at yourself, and I was like, what's he laughing? I was like, do I have something? Like, what's going on? I was kind of getting insecure myself. I'm happy to know that it was just you hurting yourself and not, you and Curtis laughing at some inside joke without me. That's what I was worried about. But no, it is good to see you guys, and I'm also excited for this game tonight. I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, no, that was not laughing. That was me wincing in pain and trying to keep from, like, I feel like I was about, try to keep from swearing, when you hit your knee like that, like, felt like I was maybe, what was it, Harry from Home Alone, when it's like ratcha fratcha, just like saying a bunch of random things, try to keep it going. But that's okay, though. Again, we're here and we're going to talk a lot of stuff today. So, folks, we appreciate it. Be sure to get in on the chat. We'll read the good ones at least today and have some good discussions there. Do a little preview. And again, it's a Remember Wednesday presented by Fayetteville Fly Co. But as you can see from the title, I'm sure this won't upset anyone at all. But I think it's worthy of a discussion because tonight, of course, being the first SEC home game for the Razorbacks against the 23rd ranked Ole Miss Rebels. Everyone's excited about it. I know that we've already mentioned how excited we are about it. And it's going to be fascinating to see how this team bounces back after that loss to Tennessee. However, something we've discussed a lot, even during the non-conference slate, was about Bud Walton, about the atmosphere, about the lack of attendance, blah, 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 blah. Well, we all agree there's no excuses anymore. It's SEC play. You got to show up. But the atmosphere has to be at another level because you even heard Chin Coleman talk about it yesterday and how important it is. You saw, and we'll talk about in the SEC update, but you saw how some of these home court advantages help already in the SEC with some of the upset losses from last night. So the question becomes, guys, has Bud Walton lost its luster a little bit? Or is it still there, just on the brink of losing its luster?
We're going to find out tonight, man. What I will say is I don't know that the team, not even necessarily this team, but just given how SEC play went last year, I don't know that they've done their part enough for us to really say one way or the other. Although I was diving through the archives, John Neighbors style, last night, looking at a bunch of old highlights and everything, and there were much worse Razorback teams than this one playing worse competition, especially than they're going to see tonight. And that place was an absolute madhouse. You nailed it, John, with just what we're seeing from these SEC home teams. Home court really, really appears to matter in this league. And it matters at Arkansas anyway. I mean, how many years have we gone through saying, oh, you better be 10 points better than Arkansas to come into Bud Walton Arena and beat them? That's not necessarily true right now. It needs to be tonight. I think it's a statement game. It's a prove it type of game for Arkansas. And it's also that kind of game, I think, for the fan base. Like, get in there and say it with your chest, man. Make it an intimidating place to be. I don't care if Ole Miss is ranked and Arkansas is not. Ole Miss should never walk into Fayetteville and walk out with a win. Just shouldn't happen, because that's the type of building Bud Walton Arena should be and needs to be tonight.
What was it that Toby Keith said that one time? I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. I think that's kind of what we have going on here with Bud Walton Arena, where it's not like, back in the day in the Mike Anderson, when his tenure first really got going, I felt like that's when Arkansas basketball for the home court advantage at Bud Walton Arena was at its peak, because you had a mediocre team that was like unbeatable at home and then couldn't win at all on the road. And that's whenever like the point differential and the swing of playing at home, Arkansas kind of had that mystique and that allure. And then obviously when you get a really good team like Eric Musselman built here at Arkansas, it becomes a little bit of a magical arena there. And you really feel that in games like that Auburn game from a few years ago, even Duke last year with the not so great Arkansas team. What we've seen over the last few years is that the Razorback fan base can get up for big games. That shouldn't be in question, because I mean, even last year with Duke, they got up for that game. Hell, the Kansas exhibition just a few months ago, they got up for that one pretty good. I think when we talk about Bud Walton Arena and some of its lost allure, it's absolutely valid. I mean, we talked about it a good bit, but it's always usually in the non-conference games or maybe on a random Wednesday night when it's 6 p.m. and you can't skip church and all that stuff. So I think tonight is going to be a very good test case for just how much Bud Walton Arena still has its fastball. Because like you guys said, I mean, this is a game that if you're only waiting to get up for the big ones, it's a big one. I mean, you've got Chris Beard, who pretty much turned down Arkansas this past offseason. I know Arkansas ended up getting Cal, and it all worked out fine and dandy for Arkansas, but like, I feel like Razorback fans in years past would really take that personally and be like, we're going to get out to Bud Walton Arena. We're going to show this dude our team needs a win. We're going to go out there and deliver it. I just don't know if the Arkansas fan base takes things as personally anymore. And I say that they take things personally, like when we say bad things or when national media says bad things, but those rivalries and the passion of each game, I don't know if they take every single game as personally. We know they can get up for the big ones, but I'm hoping that tonight is one that this Razorback fan base really does get excited for. They skip the Wednesday night church, they get out there early, and they really make this place a madhouse, because like you said, Curtis, we've seen in SEC play how big of a deal home court advantage is already at other schools. Bud Walton Arena, we like to claim that it's one of the best, if not the best atmosphere in all of college basketball. That kind of stuff, you can't just keep saying it without going out and proving it. Tonight's a good chance for Razorback Nation to go out and prove it.
Jesus will forgive you for missing Wednesday night church if you make Bud Walton a sanctuary this evening. It's okay. He'll forgive you.
Let's not start a holy war here, because that's going to end up being the case of people coming at us for it. But no, you're right. It's an atmosphere that I've grown up in, and I've been very lucky to grow up in. And I just know how I've seen and being there for all these games and all these memorable moments. And I like when I was talking to, actually, if you can believe it, some Kentucky media guys who Nick Rush, for instance, he's one of the good ones over at KSR, but he his first Razorback game, he wanted to go to a game and trying to go to different SEC venues. And the first game, only game that he's ever been to at Bud Walton Arena, was when Kentucky and Arkansas played each other when Cal got ejected. And him, as well as Kyle Tucker, I know a lot of you guys know him as far as media covering Kentucky, they kind of said something similar. But what Kyle said was, when Cal got ejected, he even put out a tweet saying, Bud Walton just committed physical assault against my eardrums. And that was for a coach getting ejected. And these guys have said it was one of the most loudest, insane atmospheres where they felt like, man, if I got the wrong color shirt, I might get hurt. Like, it's that. And that's not hyperbole. That's something that they were actually feeling. And it was a sense of pride almost when you're a Razorback fan. When you hear stuff like that, you're like, yeah, that's right. You better be scared, buddy. It was a sense of pride for it. And I think Arkansas has lost a little bit of that, maybe in the atmosphere itself. But I think it also, with Bud Walton, catered towards the style of play of when it opened up with. I mean, Nolan Richardson, 40 minutes of hell. What's more energizing and fun and just back and forth in the 40 minutes of hell? And Mike Anderson kind of replicated that a little bit. And then Muss, it changed a little bit where it wasn't that style, but it was the big moments in games, knowing that, hey, you were up here just with these other teams too. And now it's a whole new era. It's a whole new situation. And it's about how will the fans respond tonight and even on Saturday against not a bunch of crapperware teams. You're talking about 2 top 25 teams, and one of them being on Saturday, a Florida team that just beat the number 1 team in the country, which we'll talk about in a bit. But there's a sense of pride in it. You got to have your pride back. You got to be able to provide the energy, because so many people see and hear and know Bud Walton's an intimidating place to play. But if tonight there's only 13,000 people there in the stands and it's dead on their hands and the student section sucks and all of that, I'm going to start saying that it's over. Like, you've lost it, and it's going to be tough to get it back You just got to have the right people in place.
Yeah, I mean, we're not that far removed from, before we started this, like at my last stop, instead of, like we weren't going live and doing post-game shows. So I would just break into a suite after the game and do a stand-up, just kind of a post-game reaction. And I don't know how many times I had to say, I'm just so impressed that, Arkansas, their crowd was able to do this for Mississippi State tonight. I just can't get over the crowd for this sub 500 Texas A&M team in here tonight. It didn't matter who the opponent was in SEC play, at least. Yeah, the non-conference games, nobody cares about these teams you never heard of. I get it. But we're not that far removed from that. And we're not that far removed either from the team being really, really good. Like, I understand last year sucked, but it matters, man. It really does. It was evident last night, watching Georgia, what they were able to do to Kentucky. I know we're going to talk about it. Watching Texas that was dead in the water. And man, they started making a run and that building got some juice to it. And they really pushed Auburn down the stretch. They play that game on a neutral floor. Auburn wins that thing by 35. It matters. It does make a difference. So when people talk about home court advantage and, the 6-man, no, like it really does give you a handful of points because you're a little bit faster, a little bit quicker, more engaged, more aggressive. You know how we feel as fans or whatever, when we're in there and a part of that atmosphere and the hair on the back of your neck is standing up, you got the adrenaline rush. It's the same thing for the guys on the floor who feel that way. And then when it's going against you, like it was for, against Arkansas at Tennessee the other day, it really puts you back on your heels, man. It does make you uncomfortable. So I don't know, man. I'm very, I'm almost as anxious to see what the crowd turnout is as I am to see how this game goes, because I think the two are kind of one and the same in terms of their importance in the final result.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, like, your thoughts reflect your reality, and so I think the mindset of the Razorback fan base matters a lot here. One, we've talked a lot about the disconnect between the university and the fan base, and how there's not really that nice relationship where the university can know that the fan base is going to be behind everything they do. I know there's a little bit of that fractured relationship due to football, maybe the Mustang, Cal's start not being exactly as awesome as everyone hoped and all that. I think all these things play a role because I think confidence definitely plays a role when you're talking about building that home court, building that 6-man, that atmosphere. A lot of times you have a fan base that is wanting to win, desperate to win, and knows they're going to win. And they have that energy. And then the team kind of feels that as well. I just wonder how much the fractured confidence of the Arkansas fan base, which by the way, is completely fair, coming off of, a couple football seasons that fans are not happy about. I know everyone's mad at the athletic director for a lot of different things. And basketball, of course, you're coming off of your worst loss of the season. And there hasn't really been that signature moment outside of the Michigan game where fans have gotten able to get behind this Cal team and this first roster he's built. And so I just wonder how much of that affects the atmosphere as well. It's really tough to walk into Bud Walton Arena and be like, yeah, we're going to really swing this thing, because you're not really sure yet. Is this team going to show up? And so I wonder if Arkansas goes out there and beats Ole Miss tonight, regardless of what the crowd does, how much that's going to ramp things up. And then by the time when Bama and Texas and some of these other teams come to Bud Walton Arena later in the year, if it'll affect in that way too, you kind of need all these factors going together to get that special atmosphere. Like that game that Arkansas played against number 1 Auburn, it wasn't just a random one-off. There was a lot that led up to that with Auburn's season and Arkansas' season as well. And it was kind of a culmination of everything Muss had been building to that point. And so I think tonight needs to be a very important first step in kind of rebuilding that atmosphere, rebuilding that culture with Bud Walton Arena and the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Yeah. And so I want to make it clear, just for everybody that may be listening to this or watching this, that it's not something to where I'm coming down on people and saying, hey, you fans suck. This all sucks. Because there's a huge amount of different things that are attributing to the possibility of not having the atmosphere. And it's not just on the fans. It's not just on the U of A. It's not just on Cal. It's accumulation of everything. So I wanted to make that clear. But it's also something to where I believe Mike Anderson talked about it when he was here, saying that Bud Walton's worth 10 points. That's how he put it. He's like, Bud Walton is worth, it gives you 10 points. And when you think about that, if you're not really into the atmosphere and the energy and momentum, you're like, okay, so you're telling me that you score 10 more points because of the crowd. What about the players on the court? What about the coaches and all that? Yes, but I mean, guys, we know it. We're human. What do humans do and perform their best at, or what makes them get going and get fired up more than anything? I mean, when you hit a big three and you silence a crowd on the road, which is pretty awesome too. Or when you hit a big three and your eardrums start bursting and because of something you did, that gets you hyped. I don't care how many times you hear it. I don't care how many times you go through it. That means something. And so whenever that happens, you start playing harder, you start playing better, you start getting fired up. And when the crowd's on top of you like that, it just makes those games and those moments a lot more memorable. I don't think Arkansas may not have beaten Tennessee if that game was in Bud Walton Arena. But if Bud Walton Arena was at its best and Tennessee came into town, I guarantee you it wouldn't have been a 24-point loss. So it does mean something. And I don't know, maybe it's the university or Cal or whoever, maybe the fans just don't feel like they are worth the 10 points, like maybe it's just not been portrayed to them where they feel like, yeah, I got to be there because I am a part of it. I got to do my part to help the team win. Maybe that's a little bit of the element to it. I don't really know, but this could all be for naught. Who knows? Maybe 20,000 people show up tonight. Who knows? But the student section has to get better. It sucks. It's really bad. Like they barely hold up the signs for the starting lineup, and those signs are terrible. We need to retire those. So there's just a lot of things that they got to work on, but I just don't want to look back at this season, guys, and look at SEC play and see that Arkansas went 5-4 in the SEC and the energy and the atmospheres were not good in any of the games. I just really don't want to do that.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I feel like this fan base really needs something to be able to put all of their pride in, to really pour into. And there's a hesitation for that right now. And I get it. Like you can only get burned so many times, but on the same token, there's been a lot of basketball success recently.
Oh yeah.
Take last year, you can't throw it out, but I mean, it's been a hell of a run here for the basketball program. They need that. And honestly, we're talking about this Arkansas basketball team in general right now, and everybody sees how talented they are. Saw what they were capable of in that Michigan game. They've had spurts and flashes. They're a little bit behind. They're not where they want to be right now. You want to know what'll help speed up that process. You want to know what'll help click is if those guys get to play in front of what Bud Walton Arena is capable of for the first time. You want to talk about coming together as a team and feeling like you've got that support and really playing to that potential and maxing out. That kind of stuff can do it. Like put an 8-0 run on Ole Miss to take the lead tonight, and Chris Beard's stomping around. He's got to call a timeout and places going nuts. You get a hog call. That's what this group needs. We talk about, you hear John Calipari talking about, we got a team of fighters, and you got Chin Coleman talking about the response and everything like that. You want to see that from this team. You want to see that type of passion and enthusiasm out of them. Give it to them as the crowd. And then I think you'll see more of that. It's simpatico, fellas.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to add it real quick that, it makes me wonder last year, Arkansas suffered some of their worst losses in Bud Walton Arena history last year. Mm-hmm. I think the Auburn game is still, if I'm not mistaken, not even just SEC record, like the worst loss they've ever suffered margin wise in history of Bud Walton. And he had some other bad losses too. I always bring up that Vanderbilt game, how miserable that was. You got smoked by, I was trying to remember it may have been Tennessee actually. They came in
Tennessee
on Valentine's Day.
South Carolina beat them like 15 at home.
So it also makes me wonder like how much of an impact maybe that had on people where it's like, sheesh, it's one thing if you lose a game, but it's back and forth tough at the end because Arkansas lost a lot of those. But when you just get the brakes beat off of you, like where's the home field advantage? That's what I think it's all a program deal, man. Football has not played well at home. We all talked about that. Basketball last season, and even sometimes this season, haven't played well at home. Baseball losing in the regionals at home. It's like, where's the home field advantage and home court advantage for Arkansas? Where's the reward for the fans for showing up? Just hasn't had that happen in the past 18 months.
Yeah. No, I think that's completely fair. I mean, Muss hadn't lost a non-conference game at home until last year, and it was kind of one of those things where we didn't realize it was a thing that could happen until it did. And so when we talk about has Bud Walton Arena lost its luster, I think last year matters a little bit in the discussion. I think we all agree that like Bud Walton Arena can still be awesome, can still be great, and it's like a sleeping monster. One that like it just needs to be woken up a little bit. But I definitely think when you're talking about why it feels different, there's we've listed off 1,000 reasons and it all kind of matters. But ultimately, like, we talk about that apprehensiveness with the fan base and how they're almost hesitant. And actually I want to pull up the comment because our guy Sharkensaw, who's very good, said that he thinks football failures bleed over into football or into basketball, and maybe the battered hog syndrome is what has fans kind of hesitant to fully engage, which I think is a great point, and I think it's accurate. But I also think like that should also be channeled into like desperation, to where people should, like, fans should be annoyed at the fact that their home field advantage hasn't mattered, that they haven't been able to swing those games. And so I think it should almost make the fan base a little bit more ravenous. And we also talk about how home court advantage is such a big deal in the SEC this year so far. I mean, we've seen that in the first 4 days of conference play. I think that desperation has to matter, because you look at Arkansas's road schedule, it's like you really can't afford to mess around at home. I think fans need to be kind of viewing it through that lens of like, we have to win these home games. If this team is going to accomplish what we want it to, we've got to be winning some of these marquee home games, especially against an Ole Miss or a Florida or a Bama or a Texas or whoever it is. Like, I think that needs to kind of show up tonight, and that needs to be a part of the atmosphere of like how hungry this fan base is to get back on track and get back to prominence.
Yeah, and I know we'll get to your chats, folks. Just the final thing that I wanted to throw into is just knowing, like, Curtis, you know, you've been to pretty much every home game too. There's been so many games this year in the first half where at halftime you're like, what is this? Like, just like, what is happening? What was it? The North Carolina A&T game, I believe. They were only up 3 at halftime, and you're like, what's going on? And I think that's also an element that takes away a lot from energy and whatnot. When you get to these terrible starts and you're playing these terrible teams and you got to barely lead at halftime, you're down halftime, it takes the wind out of the sails, because you're just like, how are you struggling this much against this team? And they get it together in the second half, which helps. But I think that's been a part of it too this year.
Yeah, it has been. I will say, though, that's not new in terms of that being a thing. Like, there were several of those Musselman teams that were playing opponents like that weren't really, it's just an ugly start, and you're like, man, these guys got to wake up. But the entire time until they did, you could feel the building just looking for a reason to go nuts, looking for a reason to erupt. Even when Arkansas would be really struggling, there would be just that possession where the walking the ball up the court, and then the crowd just randomly gets to its feet. There's just a sense, there's a feeling, there's an energy still in the building waiting for it. That has not been there this year. It was in the past. And I think that's a big difference. So I get it in terms of you got to give them something to cheer about or whatever. But there's a difference in the energy that I've felt so far this season compared to some of those past, even last year in the non-conference. They were horrible in that UNC Greensboro game. It made me want to bang my head off of the table at press row. Hell, I probably did a couple times, but the whole time there was just like it was like a bubble waiting to burst, and it's just, I don't know if I've really gotten that vibe a couple times this year, but for the most part, when I get off the slow starts, it's just like some eye rolling, and I'm just going to look at my phone because this is stupid.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% fair. And I mean, everyone's kind of felt it. And I mean, even the fans that are like getting defensive about this, they kind of know that it hasn't been exactly the same. And that's not to say that it can't be ever again. It just, if we're being objective, it hasn't been that way. But I think everyone's kind of like looking for like the one reason where they're like, why has the atmosphere been bad? Let's find one. And it really isn't one. It's kind of a collection of all these things that we're talking about: the disconnect with the fans, and, the way the team's playing, and the apprehensiveness because of football, and all these things. And so I do think it also works the opposite way, where you have a game like tonight. If you go out there and beat Ole Miss, I do think it changes things. I think the team can certainly play a role in that. And so we'll just see if they can get that snowball rolling in the right direction, and we start to see this evolve into something, maybe even better than it was before, or even something different. But I definitely think like there's just not a pride with this particular basketball team playing at Bud Walton Arena so far. I mean, it's very early in the season still. There's still a lot ahead of us. But I definitely don't think you're off base at all for thinking that it feels a little bit different. And I think the fans definitely feel that too.
Yeah. We'll get to your chats, folks. It's just, I don't know, it's funny to see some of these games. I'm thinking back when I was a student, being in the front of the student section, and some of the trash that they would play in SEC play. Like, I remember watching like Rick Ray's Mississippi State team coming in, and just, it was disgusting. But yet the crowd was still in it. Like, the student section was still in it. They're still having some fun with it. I mean, when there was a time where your best player in and game out felt like it was Kiko Hadar. No offense to Kiko, but it's just like, I mean, those atmospheres were there regardless of it. But hopefully it gets back to it. And I agree. Hey, if they win tonight, that Florida atmosphere is going to be insane on Saturday. If they win both those games, I think that it's going to be insane the rest of the year. You just got to, as you said, Andrew, get a snowball effect going, open it up a little bit, and get people excited. All right, let's get to your chat here. I'm going to Remember Wednesday, presented by Fayetteville Fly Co. Sharkansas also says, the answer to this question is yes. People used to get loud on defense, but now everyone sits on their asses until the Hogs do something good. But even then, it's only like for 10 seconds and then back to the seats. Yeah, well, I wanted to bring this up too, because to me, guys, that starts with student section. I know I'm a big student section guy, but that's where it starts. You got to have good play on the court. I get it. But the students have to be the ones that you're young. You got voices. Just, every time the other team has a ball, just start cheering. I know you boo when one particular player does it, but just it starts with them. And then the rest of the crowd gets into it because they're like, we can't have these young whippersnappers being louder than us. That's terrible. Also, Razorback Rule says, I went to Simmons Bank Arena for the UCA game, and it was loud. Bud Walton Arena hasn't had the atmosphere like it's been in the past year, and hopefully that changes tonight.
So Simmons Bank has been cooking. Like, I mean, I've only been a couple times, but like every time there, it feels like it's a pretty good crowd for the most part.
I've never been in there when it wasn't pretty daggum loud,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also too, it's just so funny because I think that it does the same thing where Dickey Stevens Park, for baseball, they pack it out and everything, but then you got poor War Memorial still just can't get it.
It's the one spot in Little Rock everyone's agreed not to go to.
Yes, exactly. Let's see. Yeah, Vids for me already responded to that, but also he says this. I love this because this is something from my heart. This sounds like something that I'd say. But it's like this logo. This may have been addressed several times, but the court logo and the Razorback lettering doesn't match.
I canceled my season tickets because of it. Tell you what.
Yeah, I love that comment so much because again, that sounds like something I'd say, and I just think that like there's these old people that are up in the stand just watching the game, like I don't agree with any of this. It's just because of the logo.
The font police are real, man.
Yes. Well, listen, I'm the font, whatever. The color red, though, I'll die on that hill. Andrew says Andrew Hawthorne, sorry, says that we all knew it mattered to Muss if fans were there. He got excited and engaged the crowd and the fan base. Cal doesn't really engage with the fans. There's no excitement from him in the fan base.
I mean, I guess I'm just curious what not engaging with the fans means. Like, does he need to be more online? Is that what we're talking about here? I mean, he bussed them all over the state to do these events to kind of embrace the state. Anytime there's a crisis, he's out there picking up tree limbs and I mean, I don't know about
I think it's social media. I'm not going to.
I think it might be social media too.
But I think that's where it is because again, but Muss was the ultimate like crazy over the top, almost shut up and stop posting on social media type of guy.
Yeah.
So it's like you go from one extreme to the other, and I think people are just having to adapt to that.
And Muss was definitely more engaging, I would say, when things were good. Though it's like I see a lot of people saying, "Well, he's not even showing up for his press conferences. Cal doesn't even do the pressers." Muss would do the pressers until they started losing, and then all of a sudden we wouldn't get him, or we would just get a player instead of him, or whatever. So and then if they lose a game or two, he doesn't tweet for 2 weeks, So would you rather have a coach who just kind of sets the standard? Hey, my assistants are going to do the pre-games, I'll do the post-games, whatever. Or one that if you like that emotion where you win, yeah, he'll talk to you all day, but you lose and then piss off. Like I'm not dealing with this.
I'm glad you said that, Curtis. There's definitely some revisionist history in terms of the Muss. Like he didn't do a skit every week. Like it wasn't like he did plenty of skits, he did plenty of videos, he did plenty of awesome stuff, but it wasn't super consistent. And to your point, he would definitely fluctuate when they would win and lose a little bit. And ultimately, like I understand this premise that like Muss was more engaging with the fan base. He was more active on social media and all that. I guess my thing is, why does that have to be a thing? Like, who's basketball attendance who like has tickets to the game and is like, well, I'm going to go or I'm not going to go. And it's going to be decided by what the head coach tweets. Like, I understand why that stuff helps. I understand why, marketing and all that's a thing, but like, I don't know. I just have a hard time believing there's that many people who are like having their tickets in hand and then are like, well, I was thinking about going, but Coach Cal sent Kenny Payne to the presser. So, you know what I mean? It's like, I understand it sounds good in theory. I just don't know if that's really a thing that is equating to the atmosphere of the game being worse. I mean, maybe it has a little bit of a factor, but I really do think it's a combination of things rather than this whole thing of like Cal needs to get out there and start jigging and then we'll go to the games. You know, I don't know.
The only thing I would counter to that is the Razorback fan base in general is a very insecure fan base. Has been always. They feel like the entire world's out to get them. Everyone's out to screw them. And in a lot of cases, that's been very helpful for them being such a great fan base at times. But just like in relationships, which trust me, I know a lot about, it's like, you know, you're insecure in the relationship. So what do insecure people in relationships need to be told? That you're wanted, that you're loved, that we know everything's good. We love you. Come here. So they want to feel that in their own way, which I'm not saying that Cal doesn't do it. I'm not saying that Arkansas doesn't do it. But fans who are insecure as a collective, they want to be told how much they're loved and appreciated and be told often to give them some words of affirmation. That's the love language of Razorback fans. Words of affirmation. Tell them how great they are and how much you appreciate them, how much you need them. And I think that's why people want Cal and everything to be more present, is because that's how they feel loved.
He's been doing that every time he gets on a microphone. If we're insecure, why are we all running back, salivating over the coach who literally quit and left on you? Not many coaches in Razorback history have done that. Eric Musselman did, but we're comparing everything Cal does to what he did. Cal left Kentucky to come to you. And then every time he's in front of a microphone, he's talking about, love it here. I'm happy here. So thankful for this opportunity. Bringing Nolan back, talking about the tradition of the state. It's bigger than basketball. He does all these things, but because he sends Kenny Payne to a preseason press conference or a pregame press conference, everybody's like, he doesn't care about us. He doesn't want to be here. I just think that's a bullshit cop-out. I mean, I really do.
I think it is as well. And Curtis, kind of going back to the point with coaches who didn't choose Arkansas, you got one coming to Bud Walton Arena tonight who outright made a mockery of Arkansas and led you. And we all thought he was coming to Arkansas. Then they put out the tweet of, he signs an extension and all that. Like, that should really piss Arkansas fans off. And I think that's a great point, Curtis. Like, they should be, I mean, it shouldn't take Cal like begging you for you to get behind him as the head coach.
He's been begging him to come to games since the season started.
Yeah. And I definitely think like I understand the premise of like, you know, you have to kind of win over the fan base and, you know, when you win games, they'll love you and all that. But it's like, it shouldn't, like Arkansas fans back in the day, I feel like didn't need to be pampered to show up and make games fun. And I understand like Mike Anderson had a connection to the state, had a connection to the program and all that. But it's like, we saw John Pelfrey putting asses in seats and they were willing those teams to games. And those were horrible teams. Those are very, very below average teams. And so it's like, I don't know why all these excuses that people are throwing out, like why they didn't apply 10, 15 years ago. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and I'm not defending the fans. I'm just trying to maybe add perspective of why they may feel that way. This is just my reckless assumption again. But Cal is still one of those coaches in a unique situation where the dude, when he got hired, still people can't believe it because of how Nolan Richardson came into Arkansas with the JUCO college championship and all that. You know, Mike Anderson came from Missouri, his previous. Musselman was at Nevada. Like all these coaches that have come in, the place of Arkansas was that was their big thing. Cal's not that. He was at Kentucky. So I think that it feeds into the insecurity again of Razorback fans where they're like, hey, this guy, larger than life personality. We're not even on the same level as him. Like, we don't know what it's like hanging out with Drake. We don't know what it's like to go to a Yankees game and sit in the suites for the World Series. We're never, ever going to experience in that. And again, whether it's right or wrong, I think fans feel that going from Kentucky, which is a much better program overall, I don't think anyone's going to argue that, than Arkansas, they feel like it kind of was a step down for him, and he looks at them as a step down from Kentucky. Again, I'm just going with the insecurity. I feel like that's the case.
Well,
but
if there's a coach out there that you have now that you feel like is too good for you, then you better start embracing Sam Pittman.
Yep. That's true. Not only that,
stop complaining about him. You know?
Not only that, but like, hey, Bobby Petrino, who I love, the dude came from the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, he had an NFL job. I know it went badly, but it's not. He came and sought out you. So it can happen. It can happen. But fans, once they get to winning, once they start having excitement, it's all going to come back into play, and everyone's going to be fine about it. It'll happen. So, all right, we're going to get into a few things too. We'll get to more of your chats, folks, but just as a reminder that today, of course, is a Remember Wednesday presented by Fayetteville Fly Co. And we know that there's a lot of great things that are going on with Fayetteville Fly Co., especially like one of the little Rod Hog shirts. Pretty hot commodities, apparently, because they're having trouble keeping them in stock. Just how many great people are going out and buying them. But just remember, Fayetteville Fly Co. is a veteran-owned outdoors goods company based right here in Fayetteville. And they've pledged 5% of every purchase in 2025 to support the Mayfly Project in their mission to mentor foster children through fly fishing. So a lot of great causes that a lot of their apparel, and every time you buy the apparel, goes towards. And so if you want to kick off the new year the right way, be sure to use the code HOGSBY20 for 20% off your purchase at fflyco.com. And you can see all the different apparel that they have to choose from. Again, it's fflyco.com. Use promo code HOGSBY20, all caps and no space. Apparently, I needed to say that. All caps, no space, HOGSBY20 for 20% off your purchase. So, guys, we can almost do like, hey, remember when Arkansas atmospheres used to be great? Like, remember when Bud Walton atmosphere used to be great? I did want to bring this up, Curtis, because you were talking about the highlights you were watching.
Mm-hmm.
What's the greatest atmosphere that all of us have ever been in Bud Walton Arena? Which I know we haven't been to every game, but like just in our own personal mind, what's the greatest atmosphere in Bud Walton Arena history that we were in attendance?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to go past that Auburn game.
Yeah.
I mean, that was crazy, but I will say, and I'm bad at years, but that Arkansas Tennessee game with Barford Macon in there, that the game wound up going overtime. Yeah, Gafford doing his thing.
I think it's 2017. It's 2017.
Yeah, up until that Auburn game, that was the loudest I'd ever heard that building, and I was in there as a fan. That's the most fun I've ever had at a basketball game. That was awesome. So that one is way up there on the list for me.
Yeah, I think I've gone to the least amount of games of this trio in terms of Arkansas basketball, but the Auburn game definitely is just, that was a very special night in just my life. Like that was like is one I think about all the time. And I if I've been in a better one, I don't know what it would have been. And sometimes, honestly, like it's tough to gauge because, like, in the moment, it feels like it's the biggest thing ever. But then you go to another game and it feels like the biggest thing ever. But I still feel like that Auburn game, start to finish, there were just times during the game where it was just so loud. I couldn't even hear myself thinking. Like I was trying to work, and it was horrible. I don't know what story I wrote that day, but it had to be the worst story of all time.
Yeah, because wasn't that also when Duke Deuce was there and they were like, playing the song?
He wasn't there that night. Okay. He wasn't there, but while they were storming the court, they were jamming to the Duke Deuce song. So then he came to the Kentucky game later that year.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. See, this is where I'm the old head because I've been going to games forever, but the Auburn game was definitely next level just because not only you don't play a number one team in the country in your home court very often just because the timing has to be perfect. So just to have that in the game itself was incredible. Overtime, and Auburn, I mean, I know you remember it too, Curtis, but like Arkansas put themselves a good lead hitting free throws, and then was it Parker? What was his name? Shabari Smith would come down, just nail a three. So it's like you couldn't put him away. So yeah, it was a great atmosphere for that one. For me, I think that one's definitely up there. That Tennessee game you talk about, still one of my favorite games that really didn't mean all that much as far as like, Arkansas, Kentucky, or playing a number one, because that went to overtime as well. And Arkansas, when they went on that run in overtime, like when he got Anton Beard hitting a three that he should never have taken, I was so mad as soon as he left. I'm like, there's like 40 seconds left. Stop. But he nails it, luckily, and the place is just bedlam. So that was a great atmosphere. I'll always feel like, some games of old, like the Auburn game of 99 was incredible. The Kentucky game of 95 was incredible. And even those random one-off Mike Anderson year games, like, of course, the Qualls putback dunk was great. But here's a fun fact for you guys. Do you know how many fans were at that Kentucky putback dunk game? Like, because that was back before they did tickets sold. You know how many fans were there? There were only 17,000 fans there.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. The student section, it was the first time they had packed out the student section where they had to turn students away. But the rest of the crowd, it was just, Tuesday night, at 8 p.m.
I was it was like midnight.
Yes.
When that game finally wrapped up. I do remember that.
And I was doing morning radio. I was a producer for a morning radio show. I had to be up at like 4 a.m. and I didn't sleep that night because I was, like I said, I was in the front row. But still, like that was a great atmosphere. And even I remember that Kentucky game was great. But all of that, I'm still going to give a shout out to that Michigan game in 2012.
Yeah.
That was about because that was the first game, Mike Anderson's first season. And that was the first game that, you went through the Heath and Pelfrey years where not only people were excited about the game and the season and the team because you had Mike Anderson. You were excited because Dorial Green Beckham and Bobby Petrino and all that was recruiting there. It's Michigan. You haven't played them in forever. They were a really good team. It just felt like that was the first in a while. And Arkansas did get the win. Shouldn't have, but they did get the win. But yeah, it was on CBS. You had Kevin Harlan and Bill Rafferty on the call. I mean, come on. How could it be better than that? Hearing Bill Rafferty try to talk about Ulysses Nobles was a hilarious thing because he has not watched Ulysses Nobles one time that year, but he tried. So, but yeah, those are a few great atmospheres I remember.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I really wish I could have been at that Michigan game, and some of the stories you've told about someone back from your days as a student. Like I don't regret the decision I made to go, try and play NAIA basketball and get college paid for or whatever. But there are times like when you start telling those stories where I'm like, man, if I had to do all over again, I would have just gone to U of A,
Yeah.
Like it would have been awesome. So that's pretty cool. Do you guys remember when Arkansas lost by 26 to Ole Miss in basketball last year? Because I feel like I burned it out of my memory.
We were watching it at the office, right?
Yeah, we were. I just want to throw this out. We don't have to relive that game much, but the starting lineup for Arkansas in that game, Caleb Battle, Keon Minifield. It was Devo's last game before his hiatus. Chandler Lawson and Denaje Harris.
I think I can tell you who led Arkansas in scoring that day.
I bet you can.
Was it Layden Blocker?
It was not Layden Blocker.
Gosh, who was it?
Was it someone random?
I believe it was Battle with 11, but Pinion was the only other double-digit scorer with 10.
Gotcha. I remember Pinion and Blocker having some moments while
That was
it was
Florida.
Like 86 to 58, and they had like a couple decent moments, and fans were like, see?
That was the Florida game, which was like right before that. But yeah,
that's what I'm thinking of. Okay, that's what I'm thinking of.
Golly.
I've got a good Remember Wednesday.
What's up?
Y'all remember when Arkansas and Ole Miss were comparable athletic departments that had similar success in the three major sports? Now it's just not that way. Ole Miss is objectively a better program in all three sports.
That's frustrating.
It is.
They're not a better program in baseball, but like they won a title 3 years ago. Like, they've won that battle. We would trade places with them. Basketball, they have the coach that Arkansas wanted. They are on an upward trajectory. Clearly, we'll find out tonight. But I mean, on a right track. Football, not even close. Don't even get me started there. But you remember when Arkansas used to look down on Ole Miss?
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I remember my old coworker Danny West, great guy. He said Arkansas should never lose to the Mississippi schools or Missouri in any sport, like ever. And at the time he said it, it wasn't a hot take. But now you look at it and you're like, dude, Arkansas would be lucky to compete with Ole Miss or Missouri in anything.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate that. That makes me feel so good. Oh, man. It's sad and depressing. But yeah. I will say in inclusion with that, remember when, and this is almost like an anti-Remember Wednesday, but I tweeted this out. I cannot remember in my fandom of Razorback sports and Razorback basketball specifically going to games, a very memorable Arkansas Ole Miss game. Like there's been so much, there's been some moments.
Are you talking about basketball specifically?
Yeah, just basketball,
okay.
Yeah, football, yeah, for sure, and baseball for sure. But like, I remember memorable games of Razorbacks in Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, like just random teams. Other than the only one I can remember personally of note was when Arkansas beat the brakes off Ole Miss and Marshall Henderson in Bud Walton, where Anthon Bell hit like 10 threes and like just ran them out of the gym. To me, that's the only memorable Arkansas.
Was that on senior night, John?
It was.
I was about to say, because I remember an Arkansas Ole Miss senior night game where like all the seniors balled out, and it was just like a cool. I think that Arkansas team maybe went to the NIT, but it was like just in that moment. I remember being like, "This is a cool This is fun. I remember some Andy Kennedy, Mike Anderson battles. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah.
2018 is the one that is memorable to me.
Wait, which one?
It was 2018. It was Arkansas night. They were all dressed like freaking Clifford, and it was a freaking track meet. Arkansas won. I think it was 97-93. But what was that dude's name? Terrence
Henry? No.
Davis. Terrence Davis.
Yeah.
Bucket after bucket after bucket after bucket, and like they just couldn't put him away. But they wound up doing it. Making ice at the free throw line. But yeah, both teams damn near scored 100. But I think the reason I remember it was because it was Arkansas, and I was like, I like this.
Did Manny Watkins hit a game winner against Ole Miss? Like a game winning floater?
He did. That was in Oxford. I'll never forget that because of all the people to hit a game winner. And I love Manny Watkins, but that was the thing that frustrated me about Mike Anderson teams. I'm like, why is the wrong guy taking the shot at end of games? Like, you made it great, but it's like maybe Michael Qualls or Bobby Portis could have been the guy taking the shot, like maybe set up stuff for him. But
they had a great game in the SEC tournament in 2017, I think it was. Arkansas won by 1. That was another game where that Terrence Davis dude was just scoring a crap ton of points, but the main thing that stands out to me about that one was it was under a minute left and Ole Miss had a chance to take the lead, and Moses Kingsley had a nasty block, a nasty block. And then it was like Ole Miss had, I felt like 3 or 4 shots to tie it on the final possession. They kept getting rebounds and kicking it out. And then they got a layup at the buzzer that made, they still lost by 1, but they had so many opportunities to tie it. Every time the shot goes up, you're like, no. And they never made it. Arkansas moved on, but that was a fun one.
Yeah. Well, I was also going to add a moment in an Arkansas Ole Miss game. I don't know if y'all remember this, but this was Mike Anderson's first year. They lost to Ole Miss in this game, but former quarterback Brandon Mitchell got added to the team like 2 weeks prior because Mike, that was when they lost Marshawn Powell for the year. They were needing some depth, and he comes in and he posterized in one of the greatest posterization dunks I've ever seen, an Ole Miss player named Terrence Henry. That's what made it bring up. Arkansas ended up losing, but in the student section, we chanted Terrence has a mangina the entire rest of the game. And he ended up hitting like back-to-back threes to end it. So, yeah,
hey, can either of y'all name the last time Arkansas lost to Ole Miss in Bud Walton Arena?
It might have been that year in 2012.
It was a little bit after that, and it was, weirdly enough, it was a great Arkansas team, an Arkansas team that I believe was a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. Bobby Portis, Michael Qualls, and them. They lost 96-82 at home to Ole Miss. I don't know what the hell happened in this game, but like Portis had 23, Madden had 22, Qualls had 22, but they gave up 96 to Ole Miss at home. I don't remember anything about this game. I guess it's because they lost, but like a good Arkansas team lost to a random Ole Miss team in one of the best years Arkansas's had in the last 20 years.
That's crazy.
That was the year. Because here's the only thing real quick about that game is I remember Arkansas, like in that particular matchup, just like everything else, you can't stop them because they're hitting everything a single shot. Like it was just one of those types of games. 96 points, that's a ton.
Crazy. When I was in high school, I'm almost positive it was against Ole Miss, and Arkansas went 48 of 53 from the free throw line. It was insane. It was a Ronnie Brewer team because he was at the free throw line. It felt like the entire game. Vincent Hunter, I remember she shot like 15 free throws in the game. But 48 free throws, and that was the first time I really started considering statistics because at the end of the game I was like, wow. Home court advantage, man. Arkansas shot 53 free throws, and Ole Miss was under 20 for the game. And I was like, man, and it wasn't that big of a beatdown. So I'm almost positive that was Ole Miss. It would have been like 2004 or 2005, maybe. But I'd had to go look on Hog stats, but it was nuts.
I got to look up that game.
Better than when fans cite free throw attempts as like a reason that the ref screwed them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, like refs screw things up all the time. And I'm like, free throw attempts. Like, you really think like all those attempts were just because the refs? But
it was 2004.
Man,
wow!
And apparently that was a record.
Yeah, that's what set the tone in college basketball. Ever since then, free throws have just dominated the game of college basketball since then.
Ronnie Brewer, 10 of 12 from the line. Vincent Hunter, 12 of 14. Kendrick Davis, 9 of 9. Eric Ferguson, 8 of 8. Jonathan Monica, 7 of 8. It's crazy.
I think making the 48 is crazier than attempting 53, honestly. That's unreal.
I'm looking at, I did not remember that one at all, but wow. 53. I thought you were maybe like saying it went to overtime or something.
Oh, man.
Dude, Eric, hey, what do you think Eric Musselman would think of if he saw that box score?
Oh, you'd have to get a new pair of shorts like after something like that with all the FTAs in that game.
He pull a Rick Pitino, you're saying?
Yeah. Well, also surprised. Yeah, let's just relax. But only 2 players fouled out for Ole Miss, which is a little surprising considering how many free throws were had. But sheesh. That other Ole Miss game I was referencing, the one that the one that you said Arkansas lost, like 96 or whatever. That Bobby Portis, Michael Qualls, and Kai Madden all had 22 points and still lost. So yeah.
You know what's crazy? I had the box score because of hogstats.com. Shout out to him. Ole Miss scored 96 points and was 8 of 15 from 3, which like this was only 10 years ago. Just tells you how different basketball is. Like you just don't score 96 points by only attempting 15 threes, especially if you're making 50%. Like if you make 8 of your first 15, you better shoot 30. Yes. You know, like nowadays, but it's like nowadays, and Arkansas was 8 of 22, so I guess they were just chucking. But like 22 is probably viewed like a lot of 3-point attempts. Where like now that wouldn't even get you in the top 150 nationally.
Yeah, well, also I looked and checked because Arkansas has been ranked a good bit. Just shows you Ole Miss has been ranked twice in 30 years when Arkansas and Ole Miss have played a basketball game.
Wow,
twice. In 08 and 2010, Arkansas won that game when they were 18th. That was on the road in Oxford, and then the other one was in 2019 where they lost in Oxford 84-67, and they were ranked 18th. So. Yeah, it's going to be history tonight as Arkansas and Ole Miss, and you got the 23rd ranked Ole Miss Rebels there.
Sorry, that was just God, I hope they win tonight. So I don't want
I was like, all right, who said something stupid in the chat again?
We just need some happiness, boys.
I know.
People don't really talk about it much. I guess we should do this now, but Arkansas, even with like they lost the most recent game 77-51, but like Arkansas's really owned Ole Miss in basketball for a while now. Like the last decade or so. Like they've only lost a couple. It's kind of rare. I mean, they're 52-34 overall. But like since 2014, they've only lost to Ole Miss 3 times.
They never lost to old Kermit, right? When he was there?
Oh, hell no, they didn't lose to Kermit. They would murder those teams.
Yeah.
I remember actually feeling bad for some of those Ole Miss teams, but weirdly enough, there was a stretch from 2010 to 2013 where Ole Miss won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight against Arkansas.
Good times. I remember those days. Good times. Yeah.
People always used to freak out about the Kermit teams because it's like that zone. They're going to be running that zone. It's like it doesn't matter if it's a zone that sucks with players that suck.
Where was he at before Ole Miss? Because he was one of those guys that like won a tournament game and then.
That's right, John. Yeah, Middle Tennessee.
Yeah. Oh, so he was there with Ja'Cory Williams and all those guys.
Yeah.
I got when I was coaching. We would get just like some different seminars and coaching clinics and everything. And our zone offense actually that we put in was the Kermit Davis Middle Tennessee and his team, like demonstrating it all.
I wanted to throw this in as a Remember Wednesday, and I want to give a shout out to War Machine for providing this inspiration. But do you remember when Matt Jones played football and basketball? The former Razorback quarterback, because he posted the clip. People may not know this. Obviously, Matt Jones was incredible. The first time he ever took a snap in college football as a freshman, he threw a touchdown pass. The first time he ever touched a basketball in a Razorback basketball game, he dunked it. And if you go, I wish I could play it, but we'd get demonetized. But if you go back and watch War Machine's video of that, it shows how stupid athletic he was, where he jumped almost too high. Like he had to come down a little bit more because he almost, and there's 2 things from that. One, do you remember Matt Jones doing that, which was really cool? And 2, do you remember when there would be football and basketball players and they'd play the same sport? Like I get football, baseball.
Jeremiah Bell? Yeah, come on.
Jamario Bell.
Jamario Bell.
Yeah. How could you forget that name? Also,
he was getting some minutes, man.
Yeah, he was.
He was so wide, bro. He was like 6'4", but like 6'4", 310. Like he was just thick.
Yeah, it was like Brandon Mitchell. I brought him up. Matt Jones, Jamario Bell, trying to think of any other Arkansas players that did football and basketball. Jodine Davenport, people may not remember him, played tight end at Arkansas in the late 90s and all of that. But yeah, that's just so many cool things where you don't see that happen very often. But also when your starting quarterback is playing basketball, just jumping in the middle of the SEC, just all right. Shows you how freak of an athlete he was and how good he was at basketball. So,
you might have said it, I don't remember, but Marcus Monk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only person who ever dunked on me, Marcus Monk.
Really?
High school. Yep. He was at East Poinsett County.
Was it one of those like you got screwed by the refs because it was actually a charge, but they didn't call it, or was it?
No, I challenged it. Yeah,
Okay.
I challenged it, and he didn't like body me and knock me over or whatever. But it was a fast break. He was on one side, I was on the other. I knew it was going to happen, but I tried.
Yeah, he didn't try to take a charge. There's no way Curtis would
he one hand flushed it, and it was a summer league game we were playing at Harding University.
Wow. There you go.
Oh, throwbacks there.
At that point in time, did y'all like knew that Marcus Monk was going to be like a high level athlete?
I mean, I knew after that play, but he was still young, and I was in high school, but I think we all had a pretty good idea that he was going to be that dude.
Y'all were like, keep an eye on his brother.
This was during the time period when my high school for that year there weren't enough people to field a football team. It's like we didn't see it on the gridiron, but he was hooping too. So,
do you think Malik Monk was in attendance for that game? Possibly.
Probably, yeah.
There's a chance that Malik Monk watched you get dunked on. That's pretty good.
It's a very strong chance that happened. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. And what's funny is like Marcus Monk was actually a higher rated basketball player out of high school than he was football. But I think once he got in, like I think his freshman year, he was SEC all freshman because he was just 6'5". And they just threw the ball up to him with, was it Robert Johnson? I guess that's they just say, I'll stick with football and all that. But yeah, that's another great athlete that played both sports. But also with the thing with going back to the thing of Matt Jones, I got to tell this quick story because it's a Remember Wednesday, Fayetteville Fly Company. So this is what it's about. It's just like story time as a Remember Wednesday. But Blake Edens, who I love Blake Edens. Blake Edens is my guy, former Razorback. I remember during COVID, when we were just trying to figure out what the crap to talk about on the radio show down there at the Buzz, I had him on, and he told a story about Matt Jones, where that time where he got on the basketball team, and he said that when Matt Jones showed, or they had this open spot, and 3 football players came and tried out. One of them was a tight end named Nathan Ball. One of them was Matt Jones, and the other one was actually Jason Peters, who Hall of Famer and great athlete. He said Jason Peters was the greatest athlete he ever saw because underneath the goal, he's 6'5", like 300 pounds, with standing, jumped up and dunked the basketball under the goal. He said that's how insane he was. But problem was he couldn't handle the conditioning because it was 40 minutes of hell. But and maybe you can help me out with this, Curtis, because I know you were a coach. He said that they were running a drill. It was like 2-on-1, 1-on-2, something like back and forth. Yeah. So he said that they were running that drill, and Matt Jones just walked out there. His shoes were untied, didn't stretch. He's just sitting there by himself. And Nolan says, all right, you're in. And so Matt comes in, tightens the shoes up and goes down the court. And Teddy Gibson, who a lot of people may remember he was a track athlete, just goes down there. Matt Jones posterizes him. Nice. First play, posterizes him. And the place goes nuts. And then Nolan Richardson goes, all right, we're done. We're done. He's on the team. Nathan Ball didn't even get a chance in the matter. He goes, he's like, wait, coach. He's like, coach. He's like, wait a minute. Like, you're not going to see you're not going to let me go in there. And he goes, can you do that? He goes, no. He's like, then we're done. We're moving on. So the legend of a Matt Jones athlete and how freakishly great he was, like I said, it was pretty cool. But.
God, dude, that is a great story. I love that, man. Yeah. And those drills were always highlights. We would do it, and you just take a player away every trip down the floor. So it'd be like 5-on-4, 4-on-3, 2-on-1, or 3-on-2, 2-on-1. And what it is like, hey, you've got numbers, learn how to finish on a break. And then what it also meant is like, there are a lot of opportunities because of the numbers for guys to get freaking dunked on. And so that would happen a lot in our practice. I could only imagine that. But yeah, Matt Jones, that it reminds me of the Bay Fall story when he first got to campus, and because he was like a month late or whatever getting to campus, and they were getting all their mile times and everything. And I remember texting one of the coaches and being like, "Hey, how's Bay? Like, is he in shape? How's he look?" And he's like, "Well, Muss has his mile times. Bay went out there, didn't stretch, shoes untied, sub 5-minute mile." I was like, okay. And then, nothing ever happened, but
condition though. There's no condition.
So,
Matt Jones is like, he honestly just is like an athlete from today's era that was just dropped into, like, he's kind of the answer. Like, you see like guys like DK Metcalf, these like 6'4", 230 guys that are running 4.3s, and you're just like, imagine those guys back in the day. Like, Matt Jones kind of is the answer to that question of like, what if we took one of these freaks that are in society? Because nowadays in sports, like, not saying there's a bunch of Matt Joneses, but like we see more and more of these guys that are doing like measurables that just don't make sense. I mean, Matt Jones really was ahead of his time. He honestly, it's kind of a shame that Arkansas got a decent amount out of him, but it's like you look at some of the offenses of today in football and you're like, holy cow, imagine what they would have done with freaking Matt Jones. Like some of the guys who are just not nearly as good of athletes, but are big, strong guys that people are trying to build offenses around in college football and doing it well. It's like, dude, you could do a lot with a guy like that.
Yeah.
I mean, Terrell Pryor, not as good of an athlete as Matt Jones. Matt Jones would have been better than, you know what I mean? Like it would have been crazy.
Well, and I know it's not the only thing, but like 40 times, obviously, are good indicators. At the NFL Combine, there is still like, because Matt Jones did not go as a quarterback. He was a wide receiver. So, you're not going to look it up. But guys, there's only been one guy who played quarterback in college that ran a faster 40 time in NFL Combine history than Matt Jones. One. And it happens to be a guy named Michael Vick. Michael Vick ran a 4.33. Matt Jones ran a 4.37.
Whew.
And here's the thing. I love Michael Vick. Michael Vick's also 6 feet tall. Matt Jones was 6'5", 235 pounds. And so that's where it's like the athleticism that he had. I just don't think we'll ever see anything like it again. And like you said, Andrew, in the era that he was in, like nobody, defensive linemen and all that, they never seen anything like that. And that's why he always was able to escape so easily. It's like they're just sitting there like, oh, I got him. Oh, no. And he just takes 2 steps and he's got 10 yards. So, yeah.
Hey, since we're talking Arkansas Ole Miss, Matt Jones did dunk a football over the goalpost against Ole Miss, and he got flagged for it. As you can't do that in college football. One of my favorite clips of all time as a kid, like I used to watch that over and over again, and I was always prepared. I was like, when I play in the NFL as a kid, me, Andrew Ellis, I'm going to just be prepared. I'm going to take the 15-yard penalty, but I'm dunking because Matt Jones did it.
Yeah. Also, so like this from Andrew, he goes, the draft had him at 6'6" and a quarter and 242 pounds. Okay, my bad.
Heck
even taller and bigger than what he was. So
that's a hoss right there.
Yeah, dude, it was a big old boy now.
There's a big load coming at you now.
It's a load now. So yeah, that's a good Remember Wednesday here, folks. Again, reminder that to go to fflyco.com, you can get all the great apparel, like one of these pieces, these bad boys right here. Use the promo code HOGSBY20. You'll get 20% off of your purchase. In fact, we can kind of transition that into our Alumni Hall question of the day as well, which great Razorback apparel at Alumni Hall all across the board. It's the ultimate Razorback shopping experience. Go to alumnihall.com/Arkansas-Razorbacks. Check it all out. And also, we're going to be there the Friday before the Oklahoma game, January 24th. We're going to be live there at noon. So put that pencil in your otherwise demanding schedule and come and hang out with us. But it is the ultimate Razorback shopping experience, 3417 North College Avenue, as well as online at alumnihall.com. I was just asking people if they had a big game for Arkansas and Ole Miss. And I think the ones we've already talked about have been mentioned, but the one that got the most votes actually was the one with Anthon Bell hitting all those threes on senior night. Arkansas won by 30 in that game. So, but nice. Also another one I want to throw in, which I actually put this out on Twitter. I just completely forgot about it. I forgot that Isaiah Joe in Muss's first year went on the road to Ole Miss and scored 31 points, and Arkansas got the win.
He was giving them boys buckets, and that, if I remember correctly, that wasn't a bad Ole Miss team either, or they at least had some firepower. I can't remember the players off the top of my head, but it felt like kind of a win of consequence at the time. I guess it was pretty early in SEC play, but yeah.
Here's some names for you. Breon Tyree.
I remember that dude.
Yeah. Oh, he was good.
He had 27 points in that game.
Yeah.
Blake Henson,
Remember
KJ
Henson?
Buffin, and Devontae Schuler. I remember Schuler.
Yeah,
Oh.
did he have, I don't want to say that. Did he have alopecia, that kid?
Maybe.
They used to have a guy that was Jordan Walshish. Anyway, but that was that was a good team, man. They had some talent.
Yeah. Mason Jones was terrible in that game. Only had 13 points. Scrub.
Bomb.
But Isaiah Joe went for 34 points, not 31. 34 points. Isaiah Joe went for 11 of 18, 7 of 13 from 3-point land.
Now, hold on. This is not Muss's first year. This is Mike's last year.
No, it's Muss's first year.
Muss's first year. Okay. I was going to say, Isaiah Joe also, he had a couple like huge games at Arkansas, obviously. He had a game where he went like 8 of 10 from 3 or something like that. And it was maybe against like FIU or something like that. But like Isaiah Joe had some like ultimate in the zone heat check games when he was at Arkansas where like, man, when that dude would get hot, man, it just sucks that we were never able to like have a real team around him to where he could just be a wing. He could be what Brea is for Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, remember when Isaiah Joe was going to be back?
Yeah,
for Muss's second year with that team. Oh my gosh, man, they would have been
shot
nasty.
like 50% from 3.
Yeah,
dude,
they would have been nasty.
Him and Moses Moody, like just being on the wings, stupid.
Justin Smith on it. My God, man, that would have been fun.
Isaiah Joe, by the way, is on a freaking. I mean, he's on maybe the best team in the NBA right now. The Oklahoma City Thunder, and like he's getting to be just that, like, because at Arkansas he was always a really good shooter who's being asked to do a little too much, like asked to handle the ball and all that. At Oklahoma City, he's just shooting the ball, and he's shooting the piss out of it. It's awesome to watch him.
Yeah. Also with that I still believe that team, especially, that still had the 2 best 3-point shooting duos in Arkansas Razorback history. I know people will argue with me, but Mason Jones and Isaiah Joe, I think, are the 2 best ones on the same team. They just lit it up from 3.
They were so fun, man.
I know.
I mean, Muss never replaced their shooting. Literally never did in his entire career in Arkansas. Never had 3-point shooting anywhere close to that.
Yeah. Like, who was the best shooter after that? Note?
Moody, maybe?
Moody?
He wasn't even really that good. Yeah.
Right.
Moody might be the answer.
Yeah, he might.
Yeah.
Dude was really good.
I mean, I guess Note he was like a high volume gunslinger, but like I guess he's the answer. But yeah, it's really one of a ton of high volume shooters.
Oh, I got a great one for you about this game though, guys. Jalen Harris did not score in this game. Reggie Chaney, rest in peace, did not score in this game. But you know who did score 1 single point in this game? In 11 minutes of action.
I'm thinking
Gene Talsilla.
Yes. Gene Talsilla.
I was trying to, who's the worst player on that team?
I mean, but truthfully, it was that. I saw that. I was like, wow, him. He had 1 point. So good
for him.
Yeah. And also what's really funny is he had 3 games that year where he had 1 point. He's a big 1 of 2 guy from the free throw line, apparently.
Nobody better at taking one dribble and handing it off than Gene Talsilla.
You know why Arkansas brought in Gene Talsilla? Because at where was he? Was it
Wilmington?
UNC? Wilmington. Yeah, it was Wilmington. It was one of those. It was one of the many UNCs. He was a high FTA guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Offensive rebounder, FTA guy.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into your SEC update presented by Rhoback. Get you some Arkansas performance gear. Rhoback.com. Use promo code Hogs by 20 for 20% off your first purchase. A little basketball action last night in the SEC. Had some upsets, and I'm not mad about them. Really, really good games in some of the cases, but we'll start with the big one. Florida, team that Arkansas plays next, who had just lost to Kentucky, they played Tennessee in Gainesville. It was 73-43. The Florida Gators won. Tennessee had 18 or 15 points at halftime. It is so funny how that happens. Arkansas just gets worked by them in Knoxville. The next game they go down to Gainesville. They shoot a whopping 21% from the field, 13% from 3, and 60% from the free throw line. And now Florida bounces back after losing that cup one in Kentucky. They beat the number 1 team in the country in Tennessee.
Yeah, man. That was wild. Chaz Lanier was awful. The dude couldn't miss against Arkansas, man. And I went back and watched his particular highlights from that Arkansas game because I was like, what happened here? Like, was this dude wide open? And no, he wasn't. Like, there were some times where Arkansas was maybe not as aggressive as they should have been closing out, or like they weren't really attached to him. but he had a hand right in his face, damn near every shot that he made against Arkansas. And yeah, they locked him up. That was crazy. And Tennessee not off to a good start offensively in SEC play. They didn't shoot well against Arkansas. They just rebounded all their misses. Florida controlled the glass, and then that's something that can happen to Tennessee if you don't give up a bunch of offensive rebounds. That was impressive. You look at Florida now, and I know they lost the game, but it's like they went to Rupp and scored 100, and then they did this to Florida, and now they're coming to Arkansas. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, they're probably due for a little bit of a stinker.
Yeah.
And I hope that's the case, because my God, man.
I will say real quick, you said the rebounding, Florida out rebounded them 55-38. So yeah, hit the glass.
If you do the math, that means Florida is going to out rebound Arkansas by like 36, 37, or like something crazy like that. It's crazy. Florida's definitely the team that preseason in the SEC I underrated the most.
Yeah.
Where like I just kind of didn't see it. I didn't see why they were going to be. I thought it was crazy that they were ranked preseason. Turns out they should have been ranked pretty high. I wonder where were they? So where are they at in the poll right now? Because they lost to Kentucky. I guess they dropped
8.
Yeah.
Oh damn. So yeah, if you beat Tennessee and then you beat Arkansas, who may or may not be coming off a win against Ole Miss, like Florida low key might be the team to beat in the SEC. Besides Auburn. Auburn.
Yeah, always besides Auburn. Because that was the thing is even Florida, I think they shot the ball really well. They shot 39% from the field, 30% from three, and 76% from the free throw line. So, but yeah, nice win for them. And also another team in the SEC that took an L, and we hate to see it, Kentucky, the Wildcats. Mark Pope. They go into the raucous atmosphere crowd of the Georgia Bulldogs, and they lose 82-69 in this one. So first L there for Mark Pope in the SEC. And good. It was a good spot by Georgia. They just really controlled the entire tone of the game. Lamont Butler finished with 20 points, but didn't get anything from anybody else. Jackson Robinson was awful in this game. Way too many fouls, lasted way too long, but Kentucky gets an L.
That dude, Brandon Garrison, who visited Arkansas, and then they took Adu instead. He is I don't want to just call somebody a dirty player. Every time I look up, he is hitting someone in the face or getting in an altercation or getting reviewed for something extracurricular. Like, it's egregious, man. I've never seen anything like it. Teams that get physical with Kentucky are going to give them problems. Kentucky strikes me as a team capable of beating anybody. Absolutely. Because we see what happens when they start rattling off threes. They're going to be a really, really tough out at home, which sucks for Arkansas. But I think they're going to lose a lot of games on the road. They just strike me as that kind of team. They're still going to wind up having a really good season, but they're going to take their licks just like everybody else in the league, I think. And Georgia's, they're pretty good, man. They got some talent on that team.
Also, I would point out that I think it was Garrison's tenacity that got him thrown out of C4 as well. So I think there's a trend starting to accumulate there with them. But I will.
Anytime you're eating breakfast there, it says a lot about you, I guess.
But also Georgia just lost to Ole Miss, and I don't remember what the final ended up being in that game, but it was like really close at halftime, and then Ole Miss kind of jumped out, like they got on a quick like 10-0 run in the second half and kind of put them away. So again, you just start doing the transitive property. We're 2 games in now to SEC play for half the league, not even the full league, and you're already like your brain's like malfunctioning. Where you're like, all right, Tennessee whips Arkansas, but then Florida whips Tennessee, and then Ole Miss beats Georgia. Now, what if, instead of Arkansas wins tonight, it's just going to throw it all out of the whack. But Georgia, you saw how good Georgia is to go out there and beat a Kentucky team and, look pretty good doing it. And Ole Miss handled them pretty easily. So it's like, you start to really do the math and it's like, damn, how good is Ole Miss? How good is Arkansas? We'll find out tonight, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's like, maybe it's just really tough to win on the road in conference play. That could be maybe part of it too, but still, yeah, hated to see that. Of course, Kentucky fans were complaining. The reason they lost is because Georgia shot 38 free throws and Kentucky only shot 19. We talk about your point of how much you hate it. Yeah. Well, don't tell them that. They play perfect. Also, some other games in the SEC. Auburn did end up beating Texas 87-82. They were beating Texas pretty handily, but Texas made a run there at the very end. And Auburn was able to get out of there, but still looking like the best team in the SEC where it is right now.
It was good to see. It was good to see Auburn look human for a change. I think I said earlier, if they would play that on a neutral floor, Auburn would have won by 35. I believe that. Like, they were tracking for it. But they took their foot off the gas a little bit, and Texas got some good players. They came back in. It took Arthur Kaluma, Andrew's favorite player, to just go absolutely berserk for them to be in striking distance. But
I knew that was coming up. I actually knew when I saw the box score this morning. I was like, I bet you Curtis is going to say something about Kaluma going off. And as we know, it's very hard to win in that Moody Center. Really, really hard to win in that Moody Center.
Yeah.
Credit to Auburn. Impressive that they were able to hold them off. That was like, it was like the most impressive 5-point win against an unranked team.
Yes.
And I mean that seriously. Like, I didn't come away from that being like, oh yeah, Auburn, they're human. Like, I was like, that's probably the worst they'll play all year.
Well, another team that looks really good, just gonna be honest, Mississippi State. They went to Vanderbilt and beat them 76-64. And they're 2-0 in SEC play. They're 14th in the country. And I didn't realize until I saw the end of the game last night that this is Mississippi State's best start to a season in like 20 years or something like that. They've only lost one game. So I'm just going to say I'm happy with Cal. But I remember I got ripped when I said that, hey, Chris Jans would not be a bad coaching hire. And I was like, you're an idiot. That you just stick to going to the tanning bed, you jerk. It's like, all right, well, I was just saying I think he'd been a good coach. Dude's a good coach, and he's got Mississippi State going right now. So
yeah, they're good, man. They're legit. They did it last night, and I was looking through their roster. Like, they've got Josh Hubbard, who's a really good guard that we know, but they just got a bunch of role players. It just fits, it works, and he's a really good coach. Chris Jans is. And Vanderbilt, like, somebody's gonna have to finish at the bottom of the SEC. I don't think Vanderbilt's going to finish at the bottom. I think that's probably South Carolina, LSU, but they'll probably finish towards the bottom. But they're good. Like, that's not an easy out right there. That's a good win for Mississippi State, and they just continue to impress me, man. We talk about like who's the top tier of the SEC, and you just never mention Mississippi State, and maybe they won't wind up being there. But I don't know how you can deny them right now. They're steamrolling teams.
Yeah, no, it would have been in hindsight, I think Arkansas fans probably wouldn't have been as thrilled had they hired either of the coaches from the state of Mississippi. But state of Mississippi basketball, man, it's on the rise apparently. Maybe Arkansas can put a stop to that tonight. But yeah, I think we spend so much time talking about Auburn, obviously because they've had such a great year and had so many loud performances. Obviously, Kentucky's generated their fair share of headlines, and of course, Tennessee's number one. But Mississippi State looks as solid as any of them. And so I feel like they're going to continue to be that team that kind of flies under the radar, but nobody wants to play. And then we'll look up and be like, holy cow, this team's 19-4. Like, how did we miss this? I'm glad Arkansas doesn't have to face them anytime soon.
Well, a few games tonight in the SEC, obviously Arkansas and Ole Miss. You get to see Bama back in action. They go up to, or I guess over to Columbia, South Carolina. So we'll see if that causes any problems for them. But also, a great top 20 game that we all knew was going to happen is Oklahoma and Texas A&M also happening tonight. So
two teams that will not finish in the top 20.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that one. I imagine A&M will win, even though it's at Oklahoma. But yeah, I've been more impressed with A&M than I have been Oklahoma. I'll say that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, that's a good little transition going into our little segment here on Bet Saracen. Bet Saracen app, number one sports betting app in the state of Arkansas, not even close. So check it out and download it on your iPhone or on your Android, as well as go to betsaracen.com. I will give a shout out to Bobby Regan. I know people hate him in Arkansas, big Kentucky guy over at Barstool Sports. He texted me yesterday after the show and was like, we're going to lose to Georgia tonight. And I went on Bet Saracen and I hammered Georgia plus 2.5. And also the money line got me some money. So I appreciate that, Bobby. So give a shout out to him. But tonight, though, Arkansas, 3.5-point favorites over Ole Miss. Y'all buying that? You taking it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm actually going to bet on it, but it's like, it kind of makes sense. It's one of those lines where, like, I think if you're not really paying attention and don't really kind of realize the allure of Bud Walton Arena, I could see how an outside observer would be like, the Arkansas team that just got hammered is going to be favored against Ole Miss. But it's one of those, like, Vegas isn't stupid. Like, I think they realize the trends are due to kind of reverse for both of these teams. I am confident now, seeing that Arkansas is favored by a few points. Makes me feel kind of vindicated for the quiet confidence I have about the game.
Well, I tell you what, how about this? We'll do a few over-unders here. Some of them I made up. Some of them are actually you can get on Bet Saracen. But How about this? Over under points scored tonight is at 147.5 between Arkansas and Ole Miss.
I kind of like the under here. I mean, I think this is going to be a I just don't think Arkansas is going to score like 80 on Ole Miss's defense, and I don't think Ole Miss is going to score that much. I mean, Arkansas defensively, if they could have rebounded, played pretty well against Tennessee, and they've been in some high scoring games earlier this year, but I do think this is going to be more of a slugfest, throwing elbows, 70 to 65 type of thing.
I'm going over.
I hope so. I hope it's over. I like some high scoring games. Give me some high scoring affairs. It's gonna be tough in this game, but
Arkansas, right?
Yeah,
I'd say so. Yeah. How about this? Over under free throw percentage for the Hogs tonight, 74.5.
Over.
Okay.
You think it's like a high volume, going to be a high FTA night?
They don't do that here.
They're just going to be like 8 for 11.
Yeah. As long as the Duthiero's not shooting them. Come on, man.
Yeah.
He's got to make some more than that.
Shaq.
Yeah. How about over under 3-pointers made by the Hogs tonight, 6.5.
Over.
They got to make more than that.
Okay. Just I'm not betting on this team in any of these anyways, because I'm not doing it. But how about this? Over under Big Z blocks tonight, 3.5.
Under. He's not going to play.
Dang it, Curtis. You just had to ruin it all.
Hey, do you think, Curtis, you think them putting him as questionable on the injury report was their way of kind of like, they're going to give him a DNP and they'll be like, well, it's, kind of because of the injury, or is it really like?
That's exactly how I feel. I think because what's his name? Kenny Payne already told us that he had been sick. So I hope he's not sick again. Yeah. And then unless he got injured or something at practice, I don't know what it would be. But either way, I just don't. This is like Ole Miss had a bunch of 7-footers out there last year. This year they'll play like 5-guard lineups, and their 5 men are super versatile. And it's like, I don't know that it's a good game on paper for Z anyway.
Yeah. I cannot wait till I don't want Arkansas to lose, but if they lose, I can't wait till the press conference. You know who didn't play tonight?
Anyone?
Z. Zondervan didn't play. That's a huge part of the reason why this was such a difficult game. You can't have a guy like Z not playing in this game.
We need his spacing. We need it. Yep. Let's do that.
And I hope he does. I really want Big Z to be serviceable.
I do too.
I want him to be a solid 8th man.
Yeah,
for Arkansas. Be playable because I like him. I think it's a cool story. Naturally, people are gravitated to him. It's cool when a 7'2" guy hits threes. I hope they figure out a way to carve him out a consistent role to where it doesn't become this Connor Vanover thing, because he's head and shoulders, light years a better player than Connor Vanover. But this is where it's trending, right?
Yeah.
Where he's balling out in non-conference and then his role gets reduced and reduced and reduced. No, find a way to get that dude his 12 minutes a game and have him be an impactful player.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. I do, but and then kind of what I was saying is I think that him being questionable on the injury report is kind of their way of, if they don't play him at all tonight, that they can go back to him later without it being awkward of like, hey, we benched you and didn't play you at all. Now we're asking you to play. Like, I think him being questionable helps in that regard.
All right, so this is just one I threw out there for the season, actually, for the over-unders, but over-under largest margin of victory at home in SEC play for the Hogs, 21.5.
Oh,
do they play Missouri at home?
Yes,
they play LSU at home too.
LSU and Missouri. I mean, so we'll find out real quick.
I'm gonna go over, even though I don't really believe it. I think they'll beat LSU by like 16-17 or something at home. I'm gonna say over. And maybe it's just one that is out, like comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Maybe they do it tonight. Just kidding. It probably is not gonna happen tonight.
If they do it tonight.
Saturday. They beat Florida by 23.
Could you imagine? Then we really don't know anything about the SEC. It's just like don't go play on someone's home floor.
We'll have to do another Remember Wednesday when Arkansas did that to the number 2 Florida Gators when I was in the student. They beat them by 30.
I almost brought that up, John, earlier, where I was gonna be like, "Were you at that game?" Because that's one that I wasn't at, but I watched as a kid, and I was like, "Man, I wish I was there."
I got my pelvis completely destroyed because of the fact that the people behind, everybody would try to storm the court, and like Jeff Long had the SWAT team in there, and I got pushed against the railing, and that really hurt. So luckily there was gaps, for my package to go into, so that way it wouldn't completely destroy me. So Just to let everybody know.
Package.
Yeah. It was very big, a very big box, obviously, for it to go into. Yeah. Jeez. Okay, we gotta move on. But yeah, that was that's the over-unders there with Bet Saracen. Check out the Bet Saracen app. Okay, a few things, as I know we just got a few minutes left here on the show. I wanted to play this clip because I know we were talking about it. Mick Cronin, who is a coach over at UCLA. He was at Xavier, right? Or was it Cincinnati? I always get mixed up.
Cincinnati.
Okay. So yeah, used to be coach Cincinnati. Really good coach. Well, he's not too happy with a certain situation and really just started calling people out in his press conference the other day.
We don't play. We're soft. So don't tell me you want to win. Like, just don't tell me you want to win. So don't tell me you want to win. It's crazy, you know, and it's every day. I'm tired of it. It's every day. I have the most energy of anybody at practice every day. I'm upset with everybody in that locker room, my assistant coaches and my players. I mean, I don't need to do anything else. I almost got 500 wins. I'm only 53. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. But yet I come in and I have more passion and energy and pride than everybody in. That's the problem. So what the truth of it is, Ben, it's really hard to coach people that are delusional. The hungry dog gets the bone. We got guys that think they're way better than they are. They're nice kids. They're completely delusional about who they are.
Hell yeah.
I love that, dude. I purposely didn't watch this clip today because I knew that it was going to get played on the show and I wanted to react to it. That's good stuff. And you can tell he like means it too. Like he's not trying to like be a jerk. Like I love that. I love that. You got players that think they're better than they are. Hungry dog gets the bone. I love that.
They just played Michigan and the Vlad Golden dude went for 36 on him. And so he was just very upset about it.
And a very epic Big Ten matchup of UCLA and Michigan.
Hey, big BPI win for Arkansas though.
That's true.
Sheesh. Yeah, that was a great clip. I always liked Cronin, actually. Those Cincinnati Xavier rivalries, which is a very underrated rivalry in college basketball. There's a lot of hatred there, and I always loved him. And who was the coach at Xavier?
You had
what was his name?
You had one of the Millers there recently, right?
Yes. Well, Sean Miller's there now, but he was there before, I guess.
Yeah. So I just remember some really epic matchups between those two. But yeah,
you know, just the polar opposite of Cal. You know, like Mick Cronin doesn't care. He's like, dude, these guys, I'm throwing these guys right under the bus. And Cal, like his team can just go out there and lay a stinker. And he's like, shoot around. I couldn't sleep. This is on me. You know, like he will. That's one thing he does. He will deflect it away from his players. Mick Cronin, nah. I'm holding y'all accountable publicly.
College basketball coaches do love to throw their players under the bus, which like I respect. Like I really do actually like sometimes it's kind of needed sometimes. Mick Cronin, that is who he is. Like I've always loved him. I loved him back when he was at Cincinnati. Like he's just an intense, hardcore guy. That's why it never made sense to me that he was at UCLA, where I'm like, it's a little too glitz and glamour for Mick Cronin. I don't know if it's like Brian Kelly at LSU a little bit. It's like great coach. Sure, he'll have success at this big name program, but like, is it really a great culture fit?
He did pat himself on the back there, which is funny. So I
got almost 500 wins.
Yeah, I'm 53, man.
Yeah. It would have meant more if he had a national championship or something to go with it. But yeah, 500 wins is still pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, and he is right for the most part, where it's like he's accomplished more than anybody, and he's in that room at least, and it's like y'all should care more than him.
Yeah. Actually, no, I can save that for tomorrow because it's not important at all. Let's see. One final, we're about to get out of here, but just a couple of quick chats real quick that we had. And again, appreciate everybody listening in and checking it out and everything. Timothy's over here saying, good to see y'all. Been working my tail off. I'll be sending more super chats soon, you guys. Yeah, we wonder where you were at, Timothy, but it's good to know you're still around.
Good to see you, brother.
Good to hear from Timothy. I also like the way he framed that, where he's like, I'm working so that I can give y'all some super chats.
Yeah, no, that does mean a lot. And also wanted to bring this on up from a guy named Walker. He says, just opt in to say this is a loser clickbait title for the stream. Please do better, guys. Love the content, but do we need to resort to that for clicks. Well, let me say this very first and foremost. I'm the one that names the streams and everything. And it's not clickbait if you actually talk about what's in the title. And that's what we did. If you go back to the beginning, it's not a clickbait. Just because you don't like it and just because you don't agree with it does not mean it's clickbait. If we literally discussed if Bud Walton lost its luster. So you can agree or disagree. We appreciate you, but like it's not loser clickbait if it really and actually truly gets discussed.
Yeah. And it was, like it was a pretty in-depth conversation for like 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Talked about both sides of it, every angle we could. I thought it was a good conversation. It wasn't bashing. It wasn't negativity. None of that. And so like, appreciate you listening and appreciate you for liking the content, but like give it a listen before you say that. That's what gets me about it. Like you pop in an hour and 15 minutes into the show and start throwing shots. And it's like, okay, listen before you, like everybody's entitled to their opinion. That's okay. This ain't for everybody, but have an informed one. If you're going to give it, like, come on, man.
It's crazy. The ratio, like the pie chart of like people that complain about everything about the show and people that listen to the show, there's actually not that much overlap. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the comments that I read on YouTube that are angry are people that didn't watch or listen clearly. Cause if they had, you'd see what, and again, to your point, John, the question in the title is, has Bud Walton Arena lost its luster? We didn't even definitively say it has. We discussed it, like Curtis said, for 40 minutes. And we kind of talked about both angles. Like we didn't even definitively say, yes, Bud Walton Arena has lost its luster. Because I know some people that got mad. I mean, I had a show the other day titled, Does Arkansas baseball have a Nate Thompson problem? And in the show, I kind of talked some yes, some no. But like, I don't know why people see titles and get so worked up. Like, and frankly, like we've had titles on this show that I haven't been crazy about. Like, but this isn't one of them. This one I feel like is completely fair because it was the topic we spent 45 minutes talking about. We answered it and we didn't even definitively say yes.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's funny and we appreciate you listening and watching no matter what. So it's a good way to end on it. But either way, hey, we do appreciate it. Everyone listening in, watching in, be sure to subscribe to us here on Inside Arkansas. Be sure to also subscribe to us not only on the podcast and the audio side of things, but also on social media at Inside Arkansas. You can also check out our website, insidearkansas.com, for all the latest and greatest up-to-date information, all things Razorbacks. And we'll keep it going from there. Be sure to tune in tonight after the Arkansas Ole Miss game. You'll be able to hear your pod at the Palace post-game show, get your immediate reactions. So tune in for that. So for Andrew Ellis and Curtis Wilkerson, I am John Neighbors. Same sports show, same sports channel tomorrow at noon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we'll see you then.